Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to Breakfast with Sergio. Today I'm here with Luis Martin. We are in New York City and we are wrapping up the Armory Show weekend. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to Breakfast with Sergio. I'm here with Luis. Hey, Luis.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Well, first of all, I gotta say thank you for hosting us here. You've been such a great friend, such a great host. You and Elvis have given us such a great time here in New York City. So we are wrapping up the Armory Show weekend, and my wife, Dr. Ann, and I, we came here to kind of spend the weekend with you guys and just hit the town running.
It was amazing. I mean, it's such an awesome experience to see it through different eyes, right? With you and Yanina and experiencing it together. Because I think when you see it by yourself, you're kind of locked in your head and you're like, oh, I'm not doing this, or this is so big. But when you do it together, it's like really fun. Who would have thought?
Yeah. And Luis, something that's cool is that you have been also a guest of Breakfast with Sergio before.
Yeah.
So great to have you back. Also a guest of the podcast before. I think we had talked about, from what I remember, we had talked about marketing, we had talked about email, we had talked about podcasting, we had talked about all kinds of topics. So it's kind of great to now chat about kind of like the New York scene here at, this time of the year when people come in for the Armory Show weekend, and besides the Armory Show itself, there's also the other satellite fairs and the galleries and so on. But something that I think is strange this particular year is because of the coronavirus scare and everything that's happening in the news. So it kind of makes it, I don't know, kind of awkward, right? Like,
totally.
Because you look at the news and say, well, like, all these things happening, but you go to the event and there's a lot of people and there's crowds, and I felt like it was a good vibe. People really were enjoying the show. How did you feel about that?
It was interesting. I went to a show right before you guys got here, and I saw a painting that was selling for the upwards of $30,000, and there's all this like, oh, the economy's going to tank, blah, blah, blah. But
gonna collapse, yeah.
There's still these, pockets, and it's fun to know that, oh, we have our own game, and we can keep on contributing to that. It's going to be there tomorrow. It's going to be there the day after.
Right.
So it's fun to be aware of that we're part of something a little extra. Yeah. And then the show itself, it's nice to see that people are coming out.
Right.
And that above fear, we have a community, we have different levels of art going on, and it's nice to be able to tap into all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of the awkward things like, should I shake hands? Should I go like this? Should I, when you
should I bow?
Yeah,
which is kind of fun too. It becomes a performance. Because that's cool.
Exactly. But once you pass that, then it's like, okay, I'm actually here for the art. I'm here to really have a good time and enjoy. And I think that that was kind of felt as we walked through the different aisles and found also friends and people that maybe we both know. So that was kind of I think after all, once you pass that, then you really get to enjoy what you're really here.
Totally. I mean, I think you had when you said the plane was a little emptier, right? So it's nice to have a purpose to venture out.
Exactly. Right? So now you're an artist who lives here in New York, and some of the things we're talking about also, the realities of being in New York City, and it's such a large place. I mean, 8 million or something people in this city. Many artists come here also from around the world, with big aspirations. Today we did some studio visits as well, and so it's a very competitive landscape for artists. But yet, artists like yourself, you continue to make, you thrive. This is the place that you call home, and you are originally from the West Coast.
I am.
So you moved from LA, which is not a small place, to another big place. What is it about a city that really attracts you as an artist and as an individual?
I think it's part of it is romance, right? We romanticize New York, and it's this beautiful place, and it really is, and it feeds you.
You can actually see out the window.
There's a great view, and there's these moments you're like, oh wow, yeah, you can feel the pulse, and it's great. But also, I think it's important to think about what you want as an artist, right? Because it definitely feeds you, but it also mistreats you, So you have to know what you want out of the city. Because if you just come and you're like, I'm going to tough it out, it's going to be tough. But in meeting other artists, it's unfortunate that sometimes the thesis of the conversation is how tough it is, opposed to, oh, how inspired, how moved I am to do this. Because sometimes the biggest emotion in the room is the strife, right?
Yeah.
Which again is part of that romantic idea of the starving artist. But it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I think there's a great thing that's happening that I think I aspire to, and perhaps you do too, is to be mobile, right? To have a base wherever you want to live, and then come to New York for a few weeks, a few months, go to the next city that's thriving, like Chicago, like Miami, Palm Springs. So I think the landscape is shifting, and artists always are in the forefront of that. We can be a little bit more mobile. We can be more open-minded about what it means to have a home base. So it's exciting, really.
And I think one of the things that attract us all to larger cities is, like, for example, all the big shows that come to New York. We went to see Gerard Richter, which is one of my favorite artists, has really inspired me as an artist. So it just kind of coincided with Armory Show. So being able to come here and also take a quick trip to the Met and look at that show and that retrospective, it's things that you find in larger places, right? And like you said, but being mobile allows artists who even are not in the larger cities to travel, to plan it out, and make it happen. Which that's what I love also going to art fairs, either here or when it happens in Chicago or traveling to Miami, because artists come from all over the place, and it's not just the fair, but it's all the things that happen around and the connections you make and all the artists that you meet. I think that's one of the greatest kind of values as an artist, that it's hard to explain until you experience it.
Absolutely. Today we went to an artist studio, an open studio, and we saw one of your friends, Aranza,
right?
And we had met in Italy when we had a show together. So it's so you remember, like, it is a small world, and as scary as that could be when it comes to the coronavirus, but you can really turn it into a positive. You're like, I'm part of this community, part of this that really does expand borders. So that's really cool.
Exactly.
Really cool.
So what are your last impressions of the Armory Show? How do you like it?
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I did it. That I got to see it and experience it with you guys, with you and Yanina, because again, it was like this fresh, really, and you have a genuine interest in art, which I do as well. But sometimes because I'm a New Yorker, it gets clouded with like, I've seen this before, or some, the New York attitude. So to be able to see it with you guys and really kind of have a genuinely interest in the artist and the art process was really exciting. We saw art on paper, which was really fun.
That's a great fair,
and I think just the levity of it, especially in this moment in time with the coronavirus, to experience something with levity is such an important thing.
Absolutely.
What was yours?
Totally agree. I really enjoyed it. I didn't find anything that was like overly taking like
a trend.
Visually too. But I think there was a nice sense of being able to look around each of the aisles and going through all the work and really experiencing it and making discoveries. That's what I love about art fairs. Like, it's easy to find the big and flashy and colorful that calls your attention, but I love going into the back aisles of the booths to find sometimes that little treasure, that little 5x5 artwork that probably most 90% of people will not see, but I found it, and take a picture of it, and
super cool.
That is kind of a things that I enjoy and which I found at the Armory here coming too. So I think it was great.
Absolutely.
And so super happy with that. Now we talk about art on paper, which is one of the art fairs, and you actually are an artist who works with paper.
I do.
So tell us a little bit about the type of work that you do.
Yeah, so I'm a collage artist as of late. I'm dedicating myself and focusing on collage. So I do some traveling, and when I travel, I have found an excuse to go to thrift shops because I used to go anyway. So not only to be a hoarder, but now to really source material from these thrift shops where I find old books,
print material.
Right. So right now, I went to Seattle recently and found a yoga book, and this black and white yoga book. So I've been cutting out these yoga poses and putting them in different contexts, and really kind of meditating through it and finding a sense of spirituality, a sense of peace. So all of my collages for me personally are kind of like sketches for future projects. So I want to turn them either into paintings or installations or sculptures, which I have absolutely no due date. I'm very relaxed about it, but I know it's going to go somewhere. So kind of easing into that, and that's the collage work, which is also dictated by my space, right? I live in New York. I don't have... One of the things I saw in the fairs were big art, and I was like, I have such size envy. I want to paint big, So at the moment, I'm just honing in small and collaging. So that's what I'm doing right now.
So small work, big ideas.
Exactly. right.
Now you talk about also, as you're talking about the work that you're doing right now, inspired also like in this yoga book and kind of like being centered and so on. Which is kind of almost like opposite when I think of New York. You get out of these doors and it's like noise and everybody's going left and right, but kind of does that help you being in the city, kind of to remove yourself from that and kind of center yourself as an artist and kind of find your quiet space?
Absolutely. So to me, art has always been the answer to everything and anything. So responding to the city through art has really been like my Zen moment. And it wasn't something I thought about. It's just something that in my eyes, I found this yoga book and I'm able to hone into those ideas. But yeah, definitely.
That's really cool. And now something that also we have in common is that we both have a podcast.
We do,
right?
We do.
And I have talked about your podcast before as well. Tell us, for the friends who do not know about your podcast, what's it called? Where can they find it?
Sure. So my podcast is called Studio Confessions. And what I do is I have conversations with artists and culture makers, curators. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And it's just really fun because I get to talk to people that you usually wouldn't find at the art fairs, or people that you would find at the art fairs but wouldn't have access to. So it's been a really great journey to talk to people like you who have great ideas about working with art and artists and are inclusive. You know, because sometimes these fairs can feel a little bit exclusive. So I'm really into having that feeling.
But you also have the monologues and the postcards.
I do, yes.
And the postcard is a series that one of my favorite. My favorite series. When you actually go to a museum and you talk about it. So
I completely forgot about that. Right. So in my travels, I try to go to places. So I went to a museum and I recorded. The first one I did was at the Met, and I tried recording there, but everybody thought I was doing something bad. So I had to just write it down and do it at home. But but there's all these insights to like going to the Met, right? Instead of going to the main entrance, go to the one in the education department because there's no line. Or the store, it's all on clearance down there. So I love sharing these insights with my audience, and that's definitely what you'll get when you listen to the postcards. And then the monologues are a little bit more of my think pieces, where I get to really delve into my own ideas about things. The next one that I'm going to do is addressing the coronavirus, but with the idea of building your own menagerie. You know, because at any given moment, we're in our bubble. You know, like right now, we're in our own bubble.
Exactly.
So just how do you create one that will sustain you in a zen, positive way, regardless of what's happening outside, pandemic or not? You know,
right. And what I like about your podcast is there are many podcasts out there, and then every day there's probably a new podcast coming out, right? But when you talk about interviewing or talking to another person, you're very meticulous about the way you craft the story, the way you craft the episode. There's an art behind it. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to interview such and such, but rather kind of giving it your own identity, because I think that's really what makes the podcast interesting.
Thank you.
And different, right? I mean, both of our podcasts are totally different in the way they feel and the way they sound and the way they function. But really quickly you found kind of what you wanted to do and how you wanted to craft it, and it has been consistent as you build that up. And I think that is very nice and interesting. And recently, your podcast also caught some interest, and you were speaking at podcast conferencing.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
I was really excited to be able to speak at Podcast Movement Evolution in LA.
Cool.
And it's very business oriented. So my talk was a little bit more about the passion side and how to storytell without getting bored. So one of my tips is throw a pickle at it, which is really silly. But the idea of, if you're talking about cars, for instance, and you get bored, well, think of maybe your top 20 movies, right? Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, and then throw a car, which is the pickle part.
Okay.
Throw a car. Okay, what is this car doing in Hogsworth, right? Oh, you can talk about people who deck out their cars like the lowriders or something, right?
Exactly.
So there's always new angles to explore. That's really important, because I think it's easy to start a podcast, but it's harder to get to the 90th episode.
Exactly.
So I like talking to people about how to keep it interesting.
Very cool. Awesome. And for our friends who, again, don't follow you yet on Instagram or social, if you can share where they can find you and also your podcast, because you have a specific Instagram for the podcast, right?
Yeah. So my personal one is @ArtEngineer, and there you can find my handle for the Studio Confessions podcast, which is StuCon. StuCon, like Studio Confessions.
Yeah.
Or studioconfessions.com.
Awesome. And as we close it, let's talk about why did you pick that cup right there?
So my parents are Mexican, I'm Chicano, so I just enjoy celebrating it whenever I can. So cheers to your calavera, and cheers to my little Maria doll. Yeah.
All right, Luis, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, friends, for watching. Again, share this episode with your friends. We love to connect with you on all the social medias as well. and just have an awesome, fabulous day. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Ciao.